At number 9, long missing couples Grand Dam. Jeremy Sides is a scuba diver and a YouTuber who helps solve cold case disappearances by searching for vehicles and other submerged clues connected to missing people. In late 2022, he began looking into the disappearance of 18-year-old Aaron Foster and 17-year-old Jeremy Bechtel, who vanished in 2000 in Sparta, Tennessee. After picking Aaron's brother up at an arcade and dropping him off at home that evening, the pair left for a party in Aaron's 1998 Pontiac Grand Dam. They were never seen again. Sides began searching by exploring several bodies of water in and around Sparta. After hearing about his work, White County Sheriff Steve Page suggested searching the Calfkiller River near Aaron's home. Soon enough, Sides discovered a mud-covered Grand Dam with human remains inside. Page ran the license plate number and confirmed that it was the car the missing teens were driving the night they disappeared. After more than 2 decades of uncertainty and rumors like Foster and Bechtel were murdered in a drug deal gone wrong, they ran off to Florida and were killed after witnessing a crime, their families finally had answers. Lead investigator Major John Meadows, who went to school with the victims, admitted to Knox News that for a long time he thought they were lovers who ran off together. But it's unclear why and how Foster and Bechtel drove into the creek, which is just a few feet from the road. When the tragedy happened, there was no guardrail to protect cars from going in, and the Grand Dam settled between 12 feet of murky water. There was no evidence of foul play, but there also wasn't much evidence at all because the vehicle had been submerged for so long. And although questions linger, the missing teens' remains were finally given proper burials, marking a step in their loved one's path to healing. At number 8, a vintage Bugatti. In 2009, a 1925 Bugatti Type 22 Brescia Roadster was discovered at the bottom of Lake Maggiore, which straddles the border between Italy and Switzerland. After sitting underwater for nearly 73 years, it was heavily rusted and damaged. Despite this, the extremely rare car sold at auction for around $400,000. Records revealed that the Roadster was registered to a French address when it ended up in Lake Maggiore in 1935. The previous year, Grand Prix driver René Dreyfus had reportedly lost it to Swiss playboy Adalbert Baudet during a drunken poker game. Not wanting to pay the hefty import taxes that came along with bringing the car into Switzerland, Baudet supposedly told authorities to do whatever they wanted with it, and they handled the matter by rolling the car into the lake. It might sound crazy now, but at the time, the Bugatti wasn't worth much. The car was rediscovered in 1967 by a diver named Ugo Pilon. More than 40 years later, a local dive club finally rescued it with plans to sell it and put the proceeds towards a charity dedicated to ending youth violence. Peter Mullen, who owns the Mullen Automotive Museum in California, bought the Bugatti and put it on display there. Instead of restoring it, he left it as is, placing it in an exhibit that recreates the feel of being at the bottom of a lake. At number 7, Cold Case Pinto. One night in early 1976, 22-year-old Kyle Clinkscales left his bartending job in LaGrange, Georgia, to attend school at Auburn University in Alabama, but he never arrived and nobody ever heard from him again. Rumors swirled for decades about what might happen to the young man, with many believing that he had been murdered. One tipster even provided law enforcement with a map of a junkyard where they believed Clinkscales' body was buried. Authorities followed up on every lead they got but found no trace of the college student or his car. A major break in the case finally came in 2021 when someone discovered Clinkscales' 1974 Pinto runabout in a creek in Chambers County, Alabama. Skeletal remains were also found inside the car, but identifying them was expected to take months, and law enforcement has not yet announced whether they've been confirmed as belonging to Clinkscales. His ID and wallet were also inside the vehicle. It's also unclear whether the remains contain evidence of how the individual died, but former Troup County Sheriff Donnie Turner remains steadfast in his belief that Clinkscales was murdered. Shortly after the car was found, he told AL.com that multiple witnesses have implicated a suspect, but there was never enough hard evidence to charge the person with murder. There were also claims that the alleged killer relocated Clinkscales' car and body to the creek using a backhoe and smashed the machinery down on the roof. When the car was removed from the water, it appeared to have extensive damage to the roof, suggesting that maybe there's some merit to these allegations. But for now, investigators remain tight-lipped about the case. How many missing persons cases do you think are connected to submerged vehicles? Tell us in the comments and hit the subscribe button while you're at it. At number 6, classic cars. The volunteer diving group Adventures with Purpose was best known for looking for vehicles belonging to missing persons, but they sometimes do other work. In 2020, they received a tip from a self-proclaimed former career criminal about some sunken vehicles in the Tualatin River outside of Portland, Oregon. Divers searched and found 9 cars near a boat launch, including a 1973 Ford Mustang Mach 1 and a first-generation Mazda RX-7. Most of the vehicles were beyond saving, but the Mach 1 and the RX-7 seemed salvageable. With the help of a tow truck, the team helped to get the 2 cars out of the river in one piece. Doing so was no easy task. The Mazda was upside down and had to be turned right side up before it could be towed onto dry land. And while its wheels and interior parts were all present, its roof was pushed in, the paint was peeling, and its hood was stuck shut. Getting the Mustang out of the river was even more difficult because it was stranded even further into the water. When the team tried to lift the front end of the vehicle using inflatable balloons, the engine was ripped from the chassis. They ended up having to call a heavy-duty rig to yank the car from the muddy river bottom. The vehicle was completely rusted out and it folded beyond recognition while it was being moved. While the plans for the Mazda are unknown, it's probably safe to assume that the Mustang was scrapped. SS Thistlegorm wreck. Built in 1940, the British merchant navy ship the SS Thistlegorm completed just 3 successful voyages before German bombers sunk it the following year. The vessel embarked on what would be its final voyage in June of 1941, leaving Glasgow, Scotland for Alexandria, Egypt. The ship's cargo included motorcycles, armored vehicles, trucks, guns, ammo, radio equipment, aircraft and railway parts, and 2 train locomotives. When the 420-foot-long Thistlegorm reached the Suez Canal, there was an accident blocking its entry into the waterway. Left with no other choice, the captain docked the ship off the Egyptian coast. Suspecting that the Allies were trying to enter Egypt, the Nazis dispatched a pair of bombers with orders to seek and destroy the ship. The bombers accomplished what they set out to do and struck the Thistlegorm with 2 bombs, causing some of the ammunition on board to explode. 9 people died in the attack and the vessel sank to the bottom of the Red Sea, taking its cargo with it. French explorer Jacques Cousteau discovered the wreck during the 1950s, but it was soon forgotten about. The coastal city of Sharm el-Sheikh opened the wreck to divers in the early 1990s, and today it's considered by many to be the world's best wreck dive. The vessel sits roughly 100 feet below the surface, where many of the items it was carrying, including trucks, rail cars, and motorcycles, are still visible today. At number 4, Florida man's submerged Saturn. 40-year-old William Earl Moult disappeared around midnight on a cool, breezy night in November of 1997 after leaving a nightclub in Palm Beach County, Florida. He was last seen driving away alone in his white 1994 Saturn SL while calling his girlfriend to let her know he was on his way home. Moult's family reported him missing the next day. Police failed to identify any suspicious circumstances, according to witnesses. Moult didn't seem intoxicated when he left the club and nothing seemed noticeably wrong. His fate remained a mystery for the next 22 years, until a former resident of a neighborhood called Grand Isles spotted a white car in a pond while looking through Google Earth in 2019. Screenshots were passed along to Barry Fay, who lives adjacent to the pond. Using his drone, Fay snapped some photos from above, which confirmed that there was indeed a car submerged in the murky water. He contacted the local sheriff, who had the vehicle towed from the pond. Human remains found inside the vehicle were confirmed to belong to Moult, and the decades-old mystery of his whereabouts was finally solved. Locals were shocked that a car had sat unnoticed in the pond for so long, especially since it became visible on Google Earth back in 2007. When Moult disappeared, the neighborhood was still under construction, which explains why the aftermath of the crash went unnoticed. At the time, there was no guardrail protecting cars from the pond, which may not help to explain how he lost control of the car, but it makes it easier to understand how the car ended up in the water. At number 3, vintage cars in Foss Lake. While trying out some new sonar equipment in 2013, a group of highway patrol officers discovered 2 vehicles that had been missing for quite some time at the bottom of Foss Lake in Elk City, Oklahoma. They initially assumed the cars were stolen and discarded, but soon learned otherwise. One of the cars, a blue 1969 Camaro, disappeared in 1970, just 6 days after the 16-year-old young man named Jimmy Allen Williams bought it. He and two friends, 18-year-olds Leah Gale Johnson and Thomas Michael Rios, disappeared along with the car after going for a drive one day. Human remains found inside the vehicle 43 years later were identified as the missing trio using DNA. Friends and family initially believed that Williams, Johnson, and Rios went to go watch a football game the day they vanished. The discovery of the Camaro in Lake Foss suggests that they changed their mind and decided to do something else, only to have something go tragically wrong. Alongside their bodies, police found hunting rifles and beer bottles, further indicated that they were intending to go hunting. The other car found in Foss Lake was a 1952 Chevy. It belonged to a 69-year-old named Elva Porter, who went missing in 1969 along with two friends, Claiborne Hammock and Nora Duncan, the remains of whom were found inside the car. The circumstances surrounding the fate of both cars and the people in them remain a mystery. At number 2, a missing man's Honda Civic. In September of 2022, 54-year-old business owner Todd Dimino never showed up to get his daughter off the bus in the town of Zelienople, Pennsylvania, roughly 28 miles north of Pittsburgh. His loved ones reported him missing and law enforcement put out a notice to the public. Just days later, volunteer members of the Adventures with Purpose diving community, which searches waterways for missing people and vehicles, discovered Dimino's red Honda Civic in the Allegheny River in Pittsburgh. According to the most recent update, law enforcement is still investigating his death and have yet to announce what may have caused the tragic accident. Interestingly, the team wasn't there to search for Dimino. They came hoping to find evidence of the cold case disappearances of 70-year-old Janet Walsh, who went missing in 2020, and 78-year-old Bunny Lee, who vanished in 2013. During their search of the estimated 100 vehicles that are believed to be in the Allegheny, Monongahela, and Ohio rivers, the divers noticed that a lot of the sunken cars are around 30 years old. This led them to believe that many were deposited into the water during a specific time period by organized criminals. As the team searched, the cars they found were removed from the rivers one by one. Sadly, the individuals they came to look for remain missing. With all leads exhausted, authorities are hoping members of the public come forward with information. And at number 1, dozens of cars in Nashville. After not hearing from 57-year-old Bill Simmons for several months, his family contacted the Adventures with Purpose, a volunteer diving group for help searching Nashville's waterways for any sign of him. Simmons was last seen alive in June of 2020. AWP was happy to help look for him, and local businesses and authorities were happy to dedicate their resources as well. After doing some research, the team concluded that his car might be in the Cumberland River. During their search in early 2021, more than 40 vehicles were pulled from the water, including a Pontiac Le Mans, which was last made in the late 1980s, a 9th-generation Ford Thunderbird, a more recently manufactured Ford Focus, and a Jeep YJ, which was produced sometime between 1986 and 1995. There are various reasons for a car to end up in a river, including accidents, insurance fraud, and hiding evidence. Figuring out the stories behind the cars that AWP found would be law enforcement's job. In addition to the collection of mystery cars that were pulled from the river's depths, the divers found Simmons' car near a boat launch in 17 feet of water. The current was strong, but after several hours, the team managed to remove it from the river. Human remains found inside the car were confirmed to be Simmons, and his family was finally able to lay him to rest. Thanks for watching. Have you ever seen a car at the bottom of a lake? Tell us about it in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.